Senator Booker, thanks for sitting down with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me this, in terms of your presidential campaign, how big of a role does Nevada play as an early state?
It is critical. It's central to our strategy. This is an early primary state. It's a state that really reflects the grand diversity of our country, and we plan to come here, compete hard. I'm going to do everything I can to get around the state as much as I possibly can, connect with folks, and earn their respect and, God willing, their vote. And having family here, this is where my mom lives, this is where my grandparents have been for decades, this is where my father died in this great state. So I have a real connection here, and I want to be able to prove to folks that I will represent not just the country, but this state well as President of the United States.
Yeah, you mentioned the diversity of Nevada, and that was one of the reasons it got the early caucus position. Given the diversity of the field now, of all the people that are running, do you think it's the nominating process to Iowa, New Hampshire, well, there's really not a lot of diversity, does that need to be changed, or is it fine the way it is?
I like it the way it is. I think that we have to have candidates that can compete and present themselves well to all of America. And that means rural South Carolina to Des Moines. It means from the Las Vegas and Reno all the way to Manchester. So I'm excited about the opportunity to show that I can be a leader for all of America. And I think this primary gives a chance for me to show that.
In terms of the Democratic Party that you're going to be competing in, there's a divide now between the left and the far more progressive wing and the more centrist wing. We saw that in 2016. How are you going to navigate that?
Well, I'm the only person in this race that lives in a inner city, low income community. For all my life, I've lived, since I was, coming out of law school, I moved into these high-rise projects, and my whole career is about trying to make a change in areas that people have given up on and didn't think you could make change, but to show that by bringing people together, you can make transformative change, progressive change for people that are often marginalized or left out of the equation. And so having been the only person in this race that's represented a community like that led a city that massively increased graduation rates and test scores, but more importantly, the success of our children, that brought in the biggest economic development period into our city in generations. We've shown that on the toughest problems, I could be one of those leaders that brings people together and actually fixes things. So I know there's a lot of talk about ideology and the like, but I want to look people directly in their eyes and say, for the toughest problems in this country, we're going to make things materially better together, and that's what we've got to focus on.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room for ideology when you are the mayor or the chief executive.
You've got to drive down crime, bring in jobs, get investment, help people start businesses, the kind of things that make a real difference, make this country work for more people.
Yeah. Do you think that element of your background and your experience gives you an advantage over some of the other candidates that have never held an executive?
Well, everybody brings different things to this. I like the fact that I had to manage about $1 billion enterprise, thousands of employees. Every single day, I had to, make things work, and it's hard. I had to manage during a global crisis, the worst economy in my lifetime, and yet we were able to do things that even some of the most objective observers said they would have never believed were possible. I mean, Newark is going through its biggest economic development period since the 1960s. So I think those experiences are invaluable. If you want to be the chief executive of a country, it's good to have that management experience. But I honor all the people that are running, and I just want to put my experience and my achievements and thoughts before people.
When it comes to ideology, how do you describe yourself? Do you describe yourself as a moderate, a centrist, a progressive?
Those labels mean different things to different people. I believe I'm a progressive and proud of it. I believe that this nation needs to work for everybody, that anything that affects one American directly affects us all indirectly. If your children don't have access to great public schools, pathways to careers that have jobs with dignity, security, and retirement, I think those things have to be established in this country, because if we diminish the dignity or the justice for other Americans, it tears our whole country down. That's why I fight for environmental justice, criminal justice reform, raising wages and creating more job opportunities and securing public education for every child. You can call those things whatever you want. For me, that's what we say we are in this country. When we put our hand over our heart and say that we're a nation of liberty and justice for all, I really mean that, and I know Americans believe that, and we've got to start achieving it for more people.
You mentioned in an interview in Salon in July of 2013 that nothing in the realm of progressive politics is you won't find me. So if we're talking about universal health care, Medicare for all, you're in favor of that.
Well, what I'm in favor of is every American having access to high quality health care. I mean, and I think that if you ask every American, Republican or Democrat, we're all going to say we should not be a country where somebody is denied life-saving medical treatment because they can't afford it. That's not who we are. You can't have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness if you can't have the access to medical care. It's essential to who we are. And so the question is, if we all affirm that common values that we have, then we can start attacking the common pain that exists all over this country where people are putting aside life-saving prescription medication because they can't afford it. That's unacceptable to me. So there's lots of different ways to get to that end. I'm supporting a lot of bills that bring us there in different ways. But what I want to keep telling people is that in the United States Senate, with some of the toughest problems, where people were cynical about not getting things done, I was one that was involved in passing comprehensive criminal justice reform. I was one that passed with a South Carolina Republican a bill called Opportunity Zones. It will move billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars into low-income areas in our country, creating thousands and thousands of jobs. So I have the ideal that I'm going to fight for every day, and I also have the experience of bringing people together to accomplish those things.
Based on that experience, both as mayor, as a senator, what do you think the best way to get to a place where everybody has access to health care is? What's the best way to do that?
You know what, I'm one of those guys, I've signed on to this idea of Medicare for all. I think that if you have that kind of public option available for everybody, then we can move a far, in fact, we were one vote away in the Senate. Most people don't know that, from just moving Medicare eligibility down to 55. That alone would have lowered premiums because it would have pulled us older folks out of those pools, those private pools. So there are a lot of things we can do. Very common sense, very pragmatic, to rapidly expand healthcare for more people. And if you're somebody out there right now that's struggling or is chained to fear because you're worried about an illness or an injury might bankrupt your family, or like a person in New Hampshire was showing me that the $1,000 a month of their prescription drug costs on a $28,000 salary, I'm going to be that leader that fights for you, expands access, lowers prescription drug costs, and gets the job done. My record shows that I can get things done, and I'm going to be the kind of president that moves the bar for this country.
Yeah. Now, certainly you have your agenda. There's other people who are talking about this Green New Deal, this 2% tax on the wealth of millionaires and billionaires. What do you think of those ideas?
Well, look, a Green New Deal is, again, one of those things that could fit on a bumper sticker, but what are we talking about? We are in a planetary point of peril where, as the warming continues to happen, wildfires, water shortages, flood insurance rates going up, the more we don't do something about this problem, the more it's going to be catastrophic for all of us. So we should have a bold vision for a much more aggressively greener future. That means creating more jobs in the green industry. I did that as a mayor, environmentally retrofitting my building, putting hundreds of people to work, getting kids in apprenticeship programs. There's ways we can boost our economy and achieve a far greener future and deal with this crisis. And we have to rejoin the international community. We're only producing 14% of the greenhouse causing gases, 14%. Now we're overachieving, we're only 4 or 5% of the planet Earth, but we can't do it alone. That's why Donald Trump's decision to pull us out of the Paris Accords is unacceptable. America can't put its head in the sand and pretend these problems don't exist. We've got to lead humanity. That's what we're called to do as a country, as the greatest economy on the planet Earth, to show this world that we're going to lead in green tech, green innovation, green jobs, doing the right thing by our planet and challenging others to come with us into a safe, secure, green future.
Speaking of President Trump, the other side of the coin between the left and centrist debate is that the debate over the people that Thomas Frank wrote about and What's the Matter with Kansas, the people who have interests that essentially aren't served by the Republican Party, who nonetheless vote Republican. How do you reach those people?
Well, I think we've got to reach them by acknowledging them, really seeing them, speaking to their pain points, because I've been out with farmers, Republican farmers in the Midwest, and they feel like they're being ignored by this political system as a whole, as their lives have been undermined, their heritage has been undermined by our changing economy that's leaving them out. I mean, farmer suicide rates are at some of the highest levels since the 1930s. So if we don't have a party that's speaking to their pain, what about the 55-year-old guy whose factory just closed and is opening up overseas? What are we doing? How are we talking to those people? They are Americans. And we've got to pledge ourselves to be a country that works for everybody. And we've got to be a party that speaks directly to the issues and the challenges and how they are feeling what so many people are feeling, being left out, left behind, or that the forces tearing our country up, tearing our country apart, are stronger than that unifying our country. If we can't reignite in this nation a revival of civic grace, a more courageous empathy that understands the pain of your family and your children affect my family. I'm sitting here right now in Las Vegas, Nevada, because when my family was being denied justice and opportunity, other families, white and black, Christian and Jewish, said, we're going to help you. My family was denied housing because of the color of their skin. My mom, who lives here in Nevada, in 1969, it was amazing to see Republican white folks standing up for my family. We're all in this together if we see each other and know that your children's success is my family's success as well. And so I think there's understandable people on both sides of the aisle who are checking out, think politics doesn't work anymore, are thinking they're just getting screwed by a system that doesn't see them, honor them, or fight for them. And so what's the antidote to that is having leaders who stand up and ferociously say, I'm going to be there for you and fight for you. We may not solve all the problems, but damn it, I'm going to do everything I can. And I believe if that leader can inspire people to stand with them, like we did in Newark, we can make change that other people think is not possible. We can help farmers and factory towns. We can help folks that are senior citizens that are insecure because their social security checks don't go far enough. We can help kids that have lead poisoning in their blood because we haven't acted aggressively enough to fix our water infrastructure. All of these things are not a question of can we, it's where's that collective will again? The will that beat the Nazis and beat Jim Crow. Where is that collective will? That's what I want to inspire in this campaign and as President of the United States.
Now, when you were mayor, I mean, you governed that way. You literally would go to someone's house and shovel their driveway if they were, an old person, they couldn't do it themselves.
Yes.
As president, can you do that? Can you take that to the national level?
I'm excited to show people that what means more than the words of a president are the actions and the deeds of a president. That you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. And love is not a feeling, it is a verb. It takes action and sacrifice. So should I be elected, I will be all over this country in places that people don't expect me. Sitting down with folks that think, oh, I don't expect a Democratic president to sit down with folks who might be of a different party or a different opinion. If we're going to re-stitch the fabric of our country and weave us together, one flag, one people, one nation, put more indivisible back in this one nation under God, then I've got to lead with that sentiment every single day as president.
In terms of, also in terms of President Trump, there's a lot of people who, like Tom Steyer, are saying we should impeach. There's other people who have said, people within the Justice Department actually discussed who would vote for invoking the 25th Amendment. Now, you're a graduate of Yale Law School. Do you think grounds exist now for either impeachment or the invocation of the 25th Amendment?
So I've worked across the aisle with people like Lindsey Graham and wrote a bill with the purpose of protecting the special investigation going on. That is what's important right now. We have people that know a lot more than us because they've done confidential investigations that know what's going on. I'm waiting for that report to come out, and then let's make a decision there. And everybody who wants to make it all about Donald, now he's hurting people from his language, failure to condemn Nazis, from what he's doing for immigration in this country and demonizing people who are seeking to legally immigrate to our country, coming here for asylum. I am fighting against those policies that are hurting people. But I want to remind folks, before he was even elected, we had severe problems with folks who work full-time jobs and still find themselves with more month at the end of their money than money at the end of their month. We still had millions of seniors living below the poverty line because their social security checks don't go far enough. We still had inadequate health care that was leaving too many people out and had prescription drugs to go. This was going on before him. And if we define our party just about one person, then what happens when he's not the president anymore? Are we going to have the collective will to deal with the problems of our country? So I'm not making this about what I'm against. I'm making this about what I'm for. And all of us Americans, I want to put a warning label on my candidacy. I did this when I started as a city councilman in Newark. If I am your president, I'm going to ask more from you. I'm not going to ask you to put up with more or suffer through more or deal with more injustice, but I'm going to ask you to serve more, to volunteer more, to engage more. Because when Americans are active and we understand that democracy is not a spectator sport, that's when we do big leaps in change. That's when we turn sweatshops and child labor into public education and workers' rights. Rugged individualism is a great theme in our country, but rugged individualism didn't get us to the moon. It didn't beat the Nazis. When Americans come together, stand together, work together, sacrifice together, that's when life gets better for all Americans. So that's my warning label. We need more of what's great about America, which is us, the people, all the people, Republicans and Democrats. This is one nation. We have a lot more in common. The lines that divide us are not stronger than the ties that bind us.
Do you think America's ready to hear that message? It seems like there's more division now than ever.
I agree, and I'm telling you what, I don't care. I honestly am running because of what I know about this country, what I experience when I go to rural communities and urban communities. I feel America's truth, and that's why I'm running. Leaders don't try to follow the consensus, put their fingers up and say, oh, that's not the message that people want. I'm leading from my authentic space on my love of this country. And patriotism is love of country, and you can't love your country unless you love your fellow countrymen and women. All of them. We may not always agree. There may be days we don't like each other. You know, Lindsey Graham partnering with him in legislation. There are days that he frustrates the heck out of me. But I know that my destiny and the destiny of other Americans, whether they vote different than me, is one destiny. And so this is my message of my campaign. And if it's not what Democrats want in this primary, choose somebody else. But I'm telling you right now, I ran a fire department. I don't think you actually can be successful in putting out fires by fighting fires with fire. I believe that what a great minister said, only light can drive out darkness, not darkness. Hate can't drive out hate. Love is what does that. And so if we don't like what's going on, we've got to choose a different way. We've got to choose hope over despair. We've got to choose light over darkness. We've got to choose love over hate. That's what Americans have done. That's why I'm here right now, because people who didn't look like me or necessarily pray like me saw in my family human dignity, but even more than that, they saw themselves. And they knew that if justice is denied to my family trying to move into a town with a great public school, then justice is cheapened for all families. That's the America I know, and that's the revival of grace we need for each other right now if we're going to solve the really difficult problems in America.